Maggie Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We look at the proud record of the environment, some of which my colleague Nikki Wagner alluded to earlier, and I'll pick up on in a moment. But first, the environmental appropriations themselves. It's interesting when you look at the breakdown, because when we look at the environmental side, we spend about 130 million, or 40% of vote environment, on the environment, and climate change takes up about 60%, which is 195 million. So when you look at the way it's spread across, and you look at the reforms that we're bringing in, the Resource Management Act is certainly very much central to our initiatives and our policies around protecting the environment and also growing the economy at the same time. It's certainly very important, this Resource Management Act, and once this appropriations debate is finished, of course, the RMA will be going into committee stages because it is progressing at a great rate. We've already introduced a couple of pieces of legislation around it, and there's going to be another bigger tranche coming through later this year as well. But let's look at sort of the key components of the bill that we're dealing with at the moment, because I think when you look at what this government is trying to do with protecting and enhancing our environment, the key does remain within the RMA reforms. We are looking to further improve the resource consent regime. For those of us who have electorates and have people come to see us, it's been a source of great complaint. The delays, the costs, the unnecessary nonsense, just really the impossibility of getting a job done. So we're reforming those, and we're continuing on with those reforms. We're also streamlining the delivery of Auckland's first combined plan, and within the unitary plan there are a number of complexities, and they're being carefully and slowly worked through with the cooperation of Auckland City and the various agencies there. We're improving the quality of local decision making and also improving the workability of the RMA through some minor and technical amendments as well. So those are the four main components of the bill that we're looking at, and as I said, there are going to be even larger scale RMA reforms which will include substantive improvements for fresh water management and planning systems more generally, and they'll be coming in a little bit later in the year. Water management and the protection of our waterways, my colleague, the chair of the Local Environment and Select Committee, Local Government and Environment Select Committee, alluded to earlier and went into some detail on, so I won't traverse that again. But when we look at what we're doing with direct referral, these are the kind of changes that where the rubber really does hit the road, where people will notice a difference in their day-to-day lives, the DIY people, the people who actually want to get a fairly small project done. Decisions being made through the Environment Court rather than through relevant councils are going to improve and streamline that. 6-month consenting is an excellent thing. We're going to, for medium-sized projects, allow them to get going without the red tape. Around about 1,600 medium-sized projects are processed each year, and that includes new subdivisions, supermarkets, industrial developments and infrastructure projects. Those are the kind of things that really, if you put a time limit on it of around 6 months, it focuses people's attention, it gets the job done, and the sort of delays that we saw actually just around my area out of North Shore and Albany, where a supermarket was held up by an inordinate length of time and an appeal process which was driven by a commercial competitor. That's the kind of stuff we want to do away with. The Select Committee process, as you'll gather with the discussions that have gone on around the RMA, has been robust. People have come to us with submissions, genuinely held submissions, and that's been debated at length and with some passion and rigour and conviction within the committee itself. And we have made some changes. We've introduced a new approach as a result of the Select Committee recommendations to express timeframes, and the timeframes were considered overly complex. We listened to that and made adjustments accordingly. And the Environment Minister, Amy Adams, has done what very few ministers have done, and that's that she's called all parties of the Select Committee together in her office and gone through in some detail their concerns in an effort to address them and in an effort to come up with a level of sensible consensus that we can all work with. And I think that's the measure of the Minister and the reason why these RMA reforms are going through in the way that they are. They're big reforms, they need the level of consultation, they need the submissions that we've had, and then it's discussed and moved on. But it must be moved on. We're not going to do the old Labour way of paralysis by analysis, where nothing much happens ever because there's no political willingness to make it happen. We make it happen, and we make it happen in ways that really do work for the public as well. Trees have been very contentious. There's not really enough time in the call that I have now to go into the detail of it and to do it justice, but we have made significant amendments to the blanket protection of trees in urban areas, which is a pretty lazy way of doing it. Individual homeowners, landowners have the right to know and plan what they have.
Dr. Kennedy-Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's been interesting to listen to Nikki Wagner and Maggie Barry in their analysis of the vote environment. And of course we don't dispute the